All right, you guys ready? Are you? Are you? Laura's ready.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, let's say, oh, yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, just want to make sure you're there. Okay, so I just cried last night. You know, we're all in the middle of being deconstructed and being built at the same time. I say we all are, if you're willing. I hope that you that are listening online, that you that are listening here, continue to understand the day we live in, the opportunity at hand. Continue to look around and realize that this in, not just because of the quarantine and those type of things, but just even with technology and opening your mind up to how fast things are moving, and then realizing in your own life how fast you can move also. Because we were not meant to be stuck. And the spirit, which I'm using that word for us, the word spirit wasn't even in the original scripture. If you would have said spirit to Jesus, he wouldn't know what you're talking about. Well, he probably would since he's Jesus, Yeshua. But the breath of God, the wind of God lives within us, and it is the creative force of everything, okay? As we live by the smaller engine, our mind, that's when we get stuck. And as I'm listening, we're willing. The word able, generally in Scripture, is the term dunamis, which is the power. It's the ability. We're living in a time that there's a power, there's an ability to see beyond what we've ever seen. But we have to use, I think it would be wise to use, Eddie, would you mind shutting those doors, please? It would be wise to use the circumstances in your life to keep you on the fast track in the breath, in the spirit, to keep you out of the constructs of your mind. Because our mind continually tries to hold on to what is true, and if truth is determined by my experiences, and that's where I'm nailing it down, then my truth is going to be extremely limited. You travel a little bit, you meet people, you get a little bit older, you experience more of life, and then your truth expands, okay? But you could literally never move from your town. You could not travel, you could not read a book, and you can still expand simply by learning to live from the engine, the ability of the breath of God. Those that are willing to abandon their mind, or as we were saying earlier, their mindsets. Think of that word, you get set on something. Are y'all out there? This is a quote from St. Francis of Assisi. Oh, let me finish writing this. I didn't cross it. Listen to this. What we are looking for is what is looking. What you are looking for is what is looking. It's what's doing the looking. You're looking for peace, you're looking for love, you're looking for more of God, you're looking, whatever, that what you are looking for is already within you. It is what is doing the looking. It's the circular. Sometimes you just have to breathe and just let things flow through you, and it'll come up into your mind later. We've been so addicted and conditioned to live from our mind first. When it hits our mind, we throw it out. I was crying last night because there's some things that I'm, seeing that I studied out years ago, but I didn't have the ability, or I wasn't willing to move into the ability to know it. It's some historical things. And so even as we studied it out, and I just had to go. Have you ever gotten revelations and it kind of scared you, so you just kind of set it aside? Because it doesn't fit in anything you've learned so far. And if you set it out your mouth and you say it to maybe a few close friends, right, that are cool with whatever you believe, probably if we really sat down and got really, really honest with what we believe about anything, you guys are all pretty insane. Outside of your mind, right? Because the people that are drawn here don't want to live in the form. And so then what God is doing is he's expanding us by showing us every form. And this guy that I was listening to, he said he became an expert in all these things. So we're living in a day of knowledge, just knowledge. I love it. You can send me stuff. I might get to it, I might not. I do want to apologize, guys. I have over 200 text messages right now. But I'm in such a space that my mind, the way even I was raised and I was able to be, was just so much dialogue, that if I don't do this, even when you see me post stuff on Facebook, I don't read anything on Facebook. So if you assume that I saw that you're having a party and we're all invited, text Teresa, you know what I mean? I call Teresa the pastor's wife. For you online, that she's my biological sister. Not even my sister in the Lord. I'm like, yeah, get you some of that. I was because I used to do that for years if somebody really wanted to get a hold of Darren or whatever. I mean, they wouldn't text me. That's not true. Because Darren was really great at getting back with people. But he said he became an expert at all these things. So then he would master these languages and he would master these. He'd be on this road and he'd master something, which is what our mind wants to do. Okay? It's not me or you, it's us. Our mind wants to nail it down and build a house. Peter, oh, this is good. Let's build a temple. Right? Let's do this. Let's build something. Right? Every religion, every single religion is a form. Every Christian religion, every other religion is a form. That's all it is. What we said last week is, I always say his name like Shia LaBeouf or whatever. He said that it's art within man that they put on the outside of man. Religion is what's going on the inside of us, and then we build a form to it. So remember Darren, he was going to start the crank religion. He was up on crank for 3 days. Crank is like cocaine, but it's for a poor man. In Oklahoma, we are poor man. I don't suggest it. Are y'all out there?
Yeah.
That was funny. Don't make me tell you what's funny. I got to have laughter. Darren used to say that's where he had the encounter with God. He was on a 3 days awake, and then he has this encounter with God. And he's like, so what? Do I start a religion like this? This is how you get to God. That's why I'm telling you, when it comes to anything you're handing with the source, with Allah, with the breath, anything someone hands you and says, this will get you there, I don't care if it's religious or a drug, it's nonsense. Right. It may be the 1 or 2 times, but if you continually have to have this and that, it's nothing to do with the gospel, which is the good news. It's only the source. And after a while, you kick off the training wheels. Don't be condemned if you're on training wheels. But if you get addicted to the training wheels, you're never going to learn how to ride that bike without it, and you're never going to learn how to really fly. So this man said that he became an expert in all these languages, and he's developing it, but he realized that the truth that he was coming into was really in what he was letting go of in the process, not what he was piling on. Does that make sense? It's meant to hurt a little bit. Or it does hurt a little bit if you heard it. Heard it. Because it's in the letting go. Jesus spit on the ground, put the mud in his eyes. Let's make a doctrine out of it. Nobody, I've been through a lot of prayer lines. I've never seen anybody do that one. They only want to do the ones that are sweet, But it's in that, if you marry that form, did he do that? Yeah, he did it. But if you marry that form, even though it was what he did yesterday, if you marry that and you bring it into the today, you're going to miss the flow. It's not that was bad. It literally says that he summed up the law and the prophets. It's not that it was bad. It was not that it was where man was. And God always meets. This is the goodness of God. He always meets us where we are. But we live in a day. I'm telling you, we live in a day where people will walk through a door that has not been walked through. Oh, it is so exciting. See, I wonder, we're going to talk about sight and we're going to talk about light. I wonder if whenever Mary sees the gardener, she doesn't recognize it's him, and he says her name, and then she recognizes. Or I wonder if on the road to Emmaus, and the guys are walking, and they're talking about everything that went on in the city, and then he shows up, and he's talking to him. Yeshua shows up, and then they didn't realize it was him, and then they said, did our hearts not burn within us? I wonder if he really did change forms, or if it was about their sight. I tend to lean that it was more a little about their sight. Because we look for something concrete. We look for something that we can nail down. We look for a structure, and we don't see in between the lines. And that's the name of this today, you guys, is in between the lines. What God is showing me is the truth is in between. The life is in between. The word, it's said that the word, milta, in Aramaic, logos, or in Greek, is one of the hardest words to translate. Something that John saw, he said, in the beginning, in the origin, before anything ever was, there was the milta. And they've tried to translate it. They said it's one of the hardest words to translate. The Greeks just said it like word. So, we got that one. There was the word. I mean, I was raised Catholic, you guys. If you hold the Bible and you could walk into any demonic house, as long as you have a big cross, the construct is going to save you, right? Our Bible was too holy to read. That's the truth. Which I said last week, I think is so interesting that Yeshua never talked about a building or a physical thing being holy. It's describing something between the lines. So I'm thinking of a baby in a mama's belly, and this life around the fluid. I don't have one in there. What are you laughing at? Did I say, the fluid around the baby is what's in between the lines. It's the life flow. The life. Or I'm thinking of a husband and wife, and we see two separate. God says they become one, but the life is in the in-between place. The union's the in-between place. I don't want to skip around, and I may say this wrong, I may not pronounce this correctly, I'm not. But there's 4 levels that the rabbis believe that revelation comes, okay? Peshat, meaning plain or simple. It is used for the most obvious and simple meaning of a text. There it is. Here's the parable. That's going to mean something to somebody. It's not that it's evil. It's just one step. Okay? Here it is. Listen to what I heard what Jesus is saying. They're going to go build their house on what they heard him say. Okay? And then remez, meaning hints. It is used for the allegoric, hidden, or symbolic meaning beyond the literal sense. Okay, so let's look at this. You guys remember, and Darren, he did such a great job talking about this. You remember when Yeshua was on the cross, and he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Right? There's one level of revelation that we think is there. But what we learned is he was beginning to leave a hint, remez. He was hinting, and the Pharisees, the Sadducees, all the religious leaders knew what he was hinting towards. It was when you started a psalm, then they would understand it's the whole psalm. Psalms 22, if you want to throw it up there, you can. But I think I have it in a more of a Hebrew translation. Psalms 22, my God, why have you left me? This is a psalm of David. And have removed me from the salvation in the words of my folly. Let's go on down to verse 5. They cried to you and they were saved. They hoped in you and they were not disappointed. Number 6, I am a worm and not a man, a reproach. I was going to say reproach. You would have laughed at that one. I am a reproach of the children of men and despised of the people. Verse 7, all who saw me mocked at me. They shot out with their lips and they shook their heads. We knew that psalm was about Yeshua. When he's on the cross, and then he goes on to say, if you go on down, verse 18, and they have divided my garments between them, and they cast lots with my clothes. I told you there was people already that moved into the now, and they were already at the cross. They were already beyond. They were at the cross. They were here. They were in the now. They had a revelation of it. Okay, and here this is in the Psalms. Let's see, 25, my praise is from before you in the great congregation. I shall fulfill my vows in front of his worshipers. The poor will eat and be satisfied, and those who seek him will praise the Lord Jehovah, and their heart will live for eternity. Verse 27, all the ends of the earth will remember and will return to the Lord Jehovah, and all the generations of the nation will worship before him, because the kingdom is Lord Jehovah's, and he is the ruler over all the nations. All the hungry of the earth will eat and will worship before the Lord Jehovah. And all who go down to the dust will kneel before him. When he's saying that, he's saying this. And they knew it. My God, why have you forsaken me, is what they heard, which that's how we translated it. But they could hear the whole psalm. He's like, yes, there's desperation. I see what you see. I can understand you see the construct, but here's what's coming. My soul lives for him. Verse 30, and the seed that will serve him will proclaim the generation of the Lord Jehovah. They will come and show his righteousness, what the Lord Jehovah has done for his people. So that's a hint. That's the second level of revelation, that they could begin to see beyond what he just said. Okay? We're getting closer to between the lines. Okay? The third one, level of revelation, and I'm sure I'm not saying this right, D-Rosh. I start looking this up, how to pronounce one. It's hard to find these things. Meaning inquire or to seek. It is used for the comparative, meaning look at similar occurrences in a word. So it's another level. This is that. Okay? His blood cleanses us as white as snow. You begin to see the snow. You begin to pull that in. You begin to see what purity is. You get a picture of it. You get a revelation of it. It begins to get married and stirring together. It's another level of revelation. But this is the one we're after. You ready? Sod. It's meaning the secret or the mystery. It is used for the esoteric and mystical meaning as often as used in the Kabbalah. It goes on down. I can read a whole bunch about this. Let's see. It's the fourth level. Literally means secret, because the esoteric interpretation used. Another sod level, the sod of God, the secret of secrets, is sometimes used for the innermost meaning of the Torah, and it goes on down. Here's the thing about this revelation. It's hidden in plain sight. It's not hidden. Remember Darren said he's not hiding it for us not to find it. It's like on Easter. Remember that he's hiding it for us to find it. But it's in the path of finding it that we move into this level of purity, the alchemy that we're going to talk about. It's in the path of finding a goodie. It's in the path of finding the intimacy. It's a path of my heart. It's a path of my life. And as I move into it, I'm ready for it. It's a level where I'm not resisting the union anymore. I'm in it. I'm not looking upon it. I'm in it. It's the in-between. And listen to this. This one guy, he said, if you take the first letters, of course, you know in Hebrew, every letter, every sound is alive and it means something. If you take the first letter of every level of revelation, it's parde, P-A-R-D-E, pardes. It's actually, he said, is an acronym for the word paradise. In other words, if you can see between the lines, if you can allow spirit in within you, understand that where you're hearing even my words is from within you. Okay, if you're just annoyed or you're trying to get it, you're just in your head. It's okay, I'm not condemning you, but what I'm telling you is if you'll just release it and let it begin to flow through you, you'll know things that you don't know yet. And this will be playing catch up. And it's letting it blow, and it's in the letting go that we begin to see and we begin to move into that in-between place. And I was crying last night because this whole thing, what I studied, back when I studied it and we learned about it, it felt like it was taking away my gospel. It felt like a loss to me. You know what I mean? But now it doesn't feel like a loss to me because my mindset's changed. And, you know, it's along the lines of how much Greek mythology was mixed in when they wrote the scriptures. And what's real and what's not real. And truthfully, I can tell you in the sod, in the in-between place, in the intimate place, in the union place, I don't care what you take away historically or linearly or physically. Kirby made a statement. He said, what if none of it happened physically? If it would matter to you, it's because you're on the first level of the parable that you have to see, hear, feel, taste, and touch. I'm not condemning you, but I'm telling you there's a knowing that's beyond this knowing. It's beyond nailing anything down. It's between the lines. I mean, when I was desperate and thought I tell my mom I'm going crazy. I need a counselor. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know that I was making room in my life to know the source of all creation. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I just knew that I didn't want to live here. Trust me, you guys don't want to be in here. It's a dangerous place. mine in here, and yours, and yours, and yours, and yours, and yours, and yours, and yours. What do you think everybody's trying to escape? All the pain, all the turmoil, all the confusion is in this space. There's no pain in my truest source, in my truest self. There's no turmoil. There's no confusion. There's only like, it's the breath of God breathing me. I'm breathing the breath of God. I know I'm talking to people that have been learned in Scripture, but come on, guys, let's not. I mean, I get a little bit jealous, a good kind of jealous, when somebody can just fly into it and they don't have to be deconstructed, and they're like, and you know what? I remember when I was there. I remember walking up. I have no idea what the preacher said, and I walk up. I'm in the 8th grade. We're a Catholic family. My mom made me stop going to this church. She said it was a cult. Amen on that one. To all you people that your moms think this is a cult. And that all we did was do a little shundai at a little dance. A little charismatic church was the cult, you know. But all I remember is we're at a meeting at a school, and you guys have heard me tell this story, and I just remember I knew something. I don't remember what the guy said. I remember what I felt. I remember what was happening, right? I just was like, my sister's like, go down there. You know, you got to go down there. And so I'm like, music's playing. I don't even remember. And I go down, and he lays hands on me, and all I know is something forever changed on the inside of me, and I just shaking, and I fall over, and I have this language coming out of my mouth, and I knew nothing to know whether it was wrong or, I had no structure until people started teaching me. And I remember getting revelation, and I had a hunger for the Word, and I listened to the Word, and we meditated all the time. Way back then, you know. But I remember when and not to blame it on people. But if you begin to listen to a person, you miss what's in between. What the person teaches, what the parable was, even if it was Yeshua, the physical Jesus on the earth, what he was teaching was just the first level. But if you could see beyond it, he took the sons aside and he said, for the sons, it's to know the mysteries, the sod. And I didn't want to presume that I know that. Don't presume you know that. It's answered by the hunger, by the desire, by the willingness to let go what you do know. And what you're letting go isn't bad. It's just a level. Some of you guys are fighting to stay in the 3rd grade. Man, you're a 7th grader. If you're growing a beard in the 3rd grade, it's time to go. There's some revelation in that. We've been lazy. We want people to spoon feed us. And then we're being challenged at the core of who we are, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing when all of a sudden you feel disappointed and where is God? It's a good thing for you to be challenged to the core. It's a good thing. Not so you know what you believe, but that you know who you are. Listen, I have to keep going back to I don't know. My feelings say this, my emotions say this. Do I really want to live this much longer? You know what I mean? I just trust you. The level of peace that I was walking in as Darren transitioned and continued in, I just have to go back to and go, let it flow through me. As soon as I define it, I make it concrete. Now, I could define it and try to articulate it for you, but what you're going to catch is in between those lines. If all you're hearing is the construct, is the sentence, is the parable, if that's all you're hearing, then you can't build your house on it because it's not yours yet. While all along it's there. All right, let's look at a couple scriptures real quick. John 8:12, when Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but he will have the light of life. When he said I am, it's I exist. It is the same as when he said I am that I am. He's just like, I am. The all-existing one, the eternal one, I am. First he states it. So he's explaining. Later on it even says that God is light. When he says, I am the light, it's the source of light, radiance, manifestation of God's self-existent life. It's divine illumination. He's talking to them about their sight. It's Christ is talking through a man, Yeshua, and he's saying, I am the light. They could walk away and go, oh, he's the light. Okay, he's the light. Maybe like the men on the road to Emmaus, maybe like Mary, after they walked away, then they went, then they saw between the lines. I knew, was my heart not burning within me, right? Was my heart not being lit up as he's speaking to me? Was the light in me not burning? It says God only knows himself. It's God within you that meets the revelation, and it's just like this ball of fire. All right, so I'm the light of the world, cosmos. You guys know that. It's the order of things. Whoever follows me, that is union. It's on a road. It's on the same path, accompanies me. Whoever's in union with me will never walk in darkness. See, we like to make, when they came in, they made everything about morality. And it's so much bigger than that. It wasn't about morality, okay? What part of the moon is not illuminated? Anybody? The one that's turned from the sun. That's where the darkness is. The light is the light is the light. Okay? As we turn away from the light, that's what darkness is. We try to make it all kinds of things, and I'm sure there's all kinds of things within that darkness. And we were created to live in the light. That's why we get so uncomfortable and we get so sick and tormented and all of these things. And we're going through all these years of inner healing from what our grandpappy did to our grandma or whatever. I mean, come on. I know it's real, but what are we going to do? Spend our whole life dealing with what happened in the darkness? When all we have to do is live in the light. Then you can literally, listen, you can go back and you can change history. You go back and you shine the light within you on your history and your future. Yeah. Your kids will never be the same. Your grandkids will never be the same. Are y'all out there? Yeah. Are you guys feeling like I'm trying to talk you into it? Are anybody tracking with me? All right, here we go. Right after Matthew 5, right after he lists, and we're going to go into these. I'll do a teaching on this, but I'm just now learning it. It's so great. On what we would call the Beatitudes. And it's not what we think. But here he's on the Sermon on the Mount. It's a famous sermon or whatever. And he's telling them all these things. Blessed are they inherit the kingdom. Blessed are this, blessed are this, blessed are this. That word blessed means ripe, okay? So after he's saying all this, faith, blessed are they that walk in humility and meekness and love. Blessed are the pure of heart. They're going to see God. They walk in forgiveness and justice. And he's naming all these things. And he says, that's the light of your soul. This is what causes man to look at you and go, I'm going to follow the light. This is the light in the earth, okay? Then Matthew 5:14, if you want to throw it up there, it says, you are the light of the world, a town built on a hill that cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand. What does that say? Put it under a bowl. Okay. There's several translations of that. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. The reason I'm saying these 4 levels of revelation, and I love it. See, I mean, the way I was wired, and this is what attracted me to Darren, it was the quiet guy in the corner. Because I was going to get to the bottom of it when no one else could. And I love the mystery. And then there's things that you begin to experience there that no one else has experienced. And you couldn't even articulate it if you tried. Are y'all out there? And so if we're reading scripture, which is just so far removed from what was said, and if we read it for what it is, we're only going to construct boxes like we have done so far. We're just going to keep producing something else, and we're going to call the next thing freedom, and we're going to call the next thing freedom, and we're going to call the next box freedom, okay? But it's still a box, okay? So when I very first heard about the translations and all the different, I think there's over 7,000 translations and like 7,500. And every one of them have to be 20% different for them to publish them, okay? And they're all correct. So if you read it by the construct, you're going to only build what? I don't know. You're going to build like what? 44,000 different denominations that are all correct. And that's what we've done because we read it for the face value. So then when I thought, oh man, this is too hard. And then I'm like, I'm just going to have to trust the Spirit. I have something in my eye right now. Get it out. Is it not look cute when I do this? Kind of freaky. You ever seen people when they flip their eyelids up? Oh, boys in school would drive me nuts. There were certain things that just grossed me out, and that was one of them. This kid would flip his eyelids inside out. Okay. You are the light of the world, the illumination. What's inside of you is already God. It's already the fullness of God. It's the light, okay? So what I'm understanding is in the letting go that the light is able to shine. I get a picture of somebody and their every part of them is glowing and shining and flowing. It's the belief systems that bog the light down. The belief systems aren't adding to the light. It's like what Brad said, you can't add to the freedom. You can't add to the deliverance, the healing of what you already are. We already have the fullness, so what's the deal? Okay? You're the light of the world, the town built on a city. Verse 15, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. A lamp is a light that moves through the city. Did not my heart burn within me? He was walking on the road. There was movement, right? There's movement. There's light that's coming. He's walking like a man, and he's moving through the city. It's not the light in the sky anymore. It's not a faraway light. It's like, oh, it just brushed up against me. It's the lamp. That's what a lamp is. You don't hide it under a bowl. Now, here's where we're going to go. Would you throw a picture up, those bushel pictures, those basket pictures? Let's see what you have. Okay, so that would be our concept, okay? But really, you don't hide it under a bushel. No, I'm going to let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All right. So let's look at that one. But really the concept, whenever you said hide the light under a bushel, is the word bushel is a measurement. Everyone say measurement. Some of them say a couple gallons. Some of them said a few liters. Did I say measure? Measurement. That's for Aaron. Aaron always gets on me for saying, everybody say measurement. Okay, so the concept of a bushel is a measurement. Okay, am I saying it right? Okay, and so this is what it was, okay? So I have a big old thing of wheat. I have it held dry goods. That's what it is, this bushel. And I come in and I scoop out. Catch me now. Hear this. And I scoop out a little bit of this wheat. Do you get the idea? The scooper, the utensil, the measurement is the bushel. He said, you don't hide your illumination under a bushel. That word in Aramaic, you guys are going to like this. You ready? So let's see. Modios or something in Greek, it's a dry measure, 1 peck. It's a container up to 8 liters, this one says. In Hebrew, it's an ephah. In Aramaic, it's satah. Satah. Okay? It's the cutting away of the whole. It's later where the word satana came from. Satan being a consciousness cut away from itself. A measure of truth. You have the light, the source of everything. You get an understanding and you put a bushel around it and you scoop out that understanding and you hold it. Wow. Yeah. And the revelation served you. The revelation served you. But it still was part of the whole. And later, satah, fragmented from itself, it's the cutting away. It measures and scoops away from. Satan being a conscious being. Now listen, you guys can dig into it, but who told you that the devil, Lucifer, and Satan were the same? We've already learned that Lucifer is the morning star, and if you'll dig into it a little bit, be a little bit responsible for what you believe, dig into it a little bit and see what you find. I mean, there's so many things what we believe just came from man. It was not in between the lines, and once you hear it, you go, oh, yeah. Oh. you're back in. You get out of rhythm. That word enemy in Aramaic means one that's out of rhythm with the whole. Rhythm. We've all been out of rhythm. We've all lived in the dark. We've all lived from a measure. And it's brought us freedom at the time, and then we hold on to it, and what we measured out becomes like a Satan in our life. That word later, they said accuser. Did you know it's not even a negative word? If I was a righteous man and Blake was accusing me, I would call him. If I'm not righteous, I'm evil or whatever, and he's righteous, I would call him my adversary. It just means that it meant adversary. It doesn't mean good or bad. It's the one that's being adverse towards you. It wasn't this being that we created it to be. But it's okay if you saw it in this form, because God, if you need the felt board in children's church, that God's going to give you the felt board. But once you can grow past the felt board, you're going to be able to see between the lines. Yeah. That's why the physical crucifixion and all of it, you guys, the sacrifices, that was where the consciousness of man was.
Yeah.
If you look way back, there was always sacrifices. This wasn't God's idea. He wasn't just a bloody God. I got to do this thing, and then we're going to make all these majestic songs about something that was really hideous. Yeah. Right. As far as all the sacrifices with the animals, just read about it. It's awful. If they were doing that down the street right now, you'd move. You'd call the cops. You'd pick it out in front of them. What David did. Every few steps, man, slaughter. I'm like keeping Russell at home. Worthy is the Russell. Okay, I'm sorry. Russell's my Labradoodle. The only reason they use lambs in the scriptures is they didn't have Labradoodles yet. I'm sorry. That's just to get those that need to be gotten. In 5:14, this is like a direct translation from Aramaic to English, which you can't hardly ever do, really. But it says, they don't light a lamp and place it under a sata, a bushel, but rather under a lampstand. There's a quote, and I'm looking it up. Maybe you guys can find it for me to see who said it. But if you take a blind man that's physically blind, and you take a man that can see clearly, and you put them both in the dark, they're equal. They're equal until the light comes. Until the light comes. And then one can see. Saul didn't know he was blind until he was physically shown. He needed the felt board in children's church. How many of you guys have been to children's church and had a felt board? Let me just see that I'm in the right place. Have you guys no idea what I'm saying? Okay. He needed God to hit him that hard into the dirt. Saul needed it that hard. His face planted in the dirt. Face plant. He sees a light. He sees his own blindness. He realizes it. He perceives his own blindness. Gave his whole life, all of his life, serving a God outside of him. And then he begins to realize in those 3 days that it's God within me, and the light begins to shine within him and opens his eyes. And you guys remember, I remember Darren saying that you don't go into the attic, turn the light on, and get mad that what the light brought all this dirt. No. Listen, what we're realizing about our government, the governments of this world, what we're realizing about all these structures, what we don't like and what we're being challenged with, and hopefully you're being challenged and you don't want it back to be the same, hopefully. Okay? What we're realizing is that's because the light is coming. It was always there. You got the sayers that are saying, oh, the world's getting bad. No. The world is being lit up right now. The exposure is what's showing us what's always been underneath. Listen, there's times I need to see what's in the heart of what my intentions are. There's times I need to just crumble and go, oh, I didn't know that was my intention. And it was a good thing. It brought a metanoia to my life. It brought a revelation. There was times we had to physically go through. There's times that we don't even start seeking till we get sick, and we realize it was our mind. I lived for my mind. It caused my body to get sick. And then we're awakened to the power of who we are. There's an awakening to the light that's within you. Will you not look away, Saul? Will you answer the call of Paul? Can you bring the mystery, the sod, the secret things to the earth? It doesn't matter what state God finds us in. It's will we burn? And then you just get unsatisfied with everything as you're fully satisfied in the burn. Then you find yourself on a lampstand outside of Nero's house, burning with real fire, and you don't even care because you understood it as a dream anyway. This is a little point of time. You're not going to bank your whole life. Don't bank your belief systems on what happened in your little lifetime. When you can see the whole and you can walk in the whole. David moved out of his little lifetime. That's why he was able to abandon himself and move into Yeshua, move into the Messiah. What do you think Abraham was doing when he saw the stars? He was seeing his part of the whole. Listen, ego, the natural self, the individual self, the one that scoops it away, the bushel part of you, the mindset that takes the revelation and separates it from the whole, always wants to make it about you and your life. And it's okay. You don't have to judge that part of you, okay? You just realize that you're just like a little toddler that poops their pants. You're going to be okay. That's why I've gotten so much revelation with Joni, and she gets so upset when you say no. I'm not mad at her that she wants to jump the fence and ride the horse and she's 2. Okay? I'm not mad at me when I see that I'm basing all my belief systems on my experience. I just have to realize how foolish it is. It's foolishness. It's foolishness. Our ego self, our natural way of thinking on whether life is good or not good based on what we experience, it's foolishness. You can laugh at yourself. Huh. I mean, what was that book I told everyone to read? The Meaning of Frankel. Man's Search of Meaning. I don't think that's right, but it's Frankel somebody anyway. He lives through the Holocaust as he's being expanded. I mean, his whole family's dead. What does he have to live for? But he's carrying something. He's carrying an understanding. He's carrying what he released in this book to us. And you begin at the emptying of this scoop. That scoop needs to move out. That revelation you had, it was awesome. But it was part of the whole. It's meant to run out. It's a good thing when it runs out. It wasn't that little jar of oil wasn't meant to sustain you without the source. So people are like, man, they're not doing good. How many people have I rescued or the church rescued that weren't doing good when we should have stepped back and let them get to the end of their self? Because when you get to the end of you, guess what's there? God. Allah. Breath. Are y'all out there? Oh. Let's look at this last part. Alex, you want to come up? I saw you. You might as well come up. You owe us. 2 weeks ago, I said to everyone, she was supposed to be here and you didn't come. So come on up. There's a microphone right here. Okay, let's look at this. Hebrews 4:12. Hebrews 4:12. For the word of God, and I have taught this. Listen, this is my disclaimer. Several of you are going to watch old messages from me or from Darren. And I'm telling you, Darren doesn't believe like that anymore either. Get the goodies out of it. Alex had an encounter with him right after he passed. He said, nothing's as it seems. Okay? That you guys remember that you guys that sat with him under his leadership, he would pace the floor in frustration at times. He didn't know how to articulate, or he was holding back. He didn't know what to say because maybe we weren't ready for it. Maybe the earth wasn't ready for it. He began to experience more in the last 2 years before he passed. He'd come out and go, I'm hearing it for the first time. I'm hearing the God. You know what I mean? And that's why you're like, go, buddy. Go dive deep into it. You know what I mean? But now it's positioning ourselves to let him tell us what he knows. Yes, I said that. So I used to teach this a lot, man. I loved Watchman Nee. I loved the dividing of the soul and spirit, not making one bad and one good. But I loved to recognize which part of me that was me, which part of that was God, right? Oh, good job. She's closer. Okay, Hebrews 4:12. For the word of God is alive. Everyone say alive. And active and sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing the soul, spirit, joints, and marrow. It judges the thoughts and intentions of the heart. Oh, we know what that means. That's probably the first level. We probably maybe know it on the second level. I mean, I think I got to the third grade, maybe. Just kidding. But here it is, okay? The word of God is alive. That word alive is energious. It's the word for energy. It's the energy that gives you life. Now remember what I said, word, milta. In the beginning was the word. Man, what the heck did John see? And the original, when at the very beginning, before anything was the milta, was like the manifestation, was like the utterance, like they still cannot accurately explain that one word, milta. But we, with our little felt board, said it's the word. Sorry. But it's hidden for you to see. This life energy force of God is it. It's all there is, John was seeing. And here in Hebrews, Paul's talking about it. It's alive. It's sharper. That word is to cut, decisiveness. It's a single stroke. It's a keen. It's said rather than hacking. You know, you get a picture like I wouldn't want someone to cut through my bones and marrow as they're hacking. Go to a surgeon, right? It's precise. Hope you guys got a visual of that. It's a double-edged sword. That word literally means drinker of blood on both sides. It's like it'll take it either way. Sharp. Figuratively, what penetrates at every point of contact, coming in or going out. We're talking about the utterance of God, the life of God, the manifestation, what we said is the word, the milta. Okay? It comes into our life in the in-between space. It penetrates. The word penetrates as it reaches through. That word sword is a short sword. He's not out far, just like, okay, this picture he's trying to give him. It divides, it distributes. It's parting, it's dividing, it's severance, it's separating. The soul, vital breath of life, human soul, the seat of your affections, your will, the self that breathes. This is where we get the word psychology, your psyche, from the breath and the wind. The very being of God, the very presence of God, the utterance of God will come into your life precisely, and it'll find the in-between place. And it's in the in-between. It's in between it's like what's in between the joint and the marrow. He'll come into our life. The revelation, the utterance will come into my life, and it'll begin to separate the deception from the source. It'll show me my intention, the ego's intention to preserve my life, and the wind, the breath of God that just breathe and be and know and move. It's the in-between space. And Paul's trying to describe to us, it's the fluid around the baby, it's the life source. It's not the husband or the wife, it's the husband and the wife. It's the in-between place. It's not that the soul is bad and the spirit is good, but it's the in-between place. He says that the only thing he could compare on the earth to his relationship with us is a marriage, and it's in the in-between place. It's the reason that God became man. He became man. He was fully united with man to fully unite us with God. It's in the marriage place. It's not for us to walk around and strut around and say we are God when we're living as a God unto ourselves, like Brad said. And we're living in the deception. We're not lighting up the world. We're not a door to anybody. We're just in the deception because we're reading the constructs of the words. But we can trust that he goes in like a surgeon, and you can trust him. There's only one spirit. There's only one breath. All the turmoil is in the resistance of the whole. All the darkness in my life is in the turning away. Whether it's out of fear or judgment, or I'm just holding on to that one bushel. That bushel that separates, that puts a bushel over my light. It's a mindset that hides the light. And Allah comes in or through us and begins to bring that. You want to say something? Come on. Come on down.
I was hiding in the back, but not very well, apparently. I'm just gonna.
Taller than me. This is not.
It's heels. These beautiful heels. I'm just gonna share a quick story about a little bit of what Sheila's talking about, of that in between place. Often I've heard people speak about the ego in such a demonizing way, and Sheila is talking about that space. It's not about condemning the ego or demonizing it, but acknowledging it, and the ego is there to bring to light the things that are hidden, right? The ego is not our enemy, it's our friend. It's actually our biggest opportunity to see truths about ourselves and to become in that in-between space where you're in awareness of spirit and ego. And so this past, actually I knew I was gonna share this story. I was practicing it in my head this morning. This past weekend I had an experience or a situation with Troy, and he's not in here, so I can talk about him. And I was at a work event, and he was with me, and Troy loves me so much, and he's been dealing with, he's a little boy, he's 5, if you don't know, he's 5. He's been dealing with a lot of jealousy with other people around me for my attention. And so clearly that biggest threat is gonna be Joni. So he's had a lot of responses towards Joni. Well, I'm at this event, and I'm talking to this man, another vendor, and we're talking, and he runs up and he swings. He jumps up at this grown man and like takes a swing at this grown man. And this grown man just kind of steps back like, who's... And I like kind of look at Troy, and I go, Troy, go sit down. Because I was like, I don't know how to deal with this in this situation. And I turn to the man, and I apologize, and he's like, that's fine. Like, I don't know why this kid's swinging at me. And I'm just like a little bit rattled because I was super embarrassed. And so I was just like, okay, we're gonna talk about this later. I'm learning not to ever discipline in the moment when I'm upset. So it's been a couple weeks now where he'll come home and he's just upset. He's just angry. And he's not understanding why, of course. And so, I'm trying to talk him through it every day, and it's Joni, because Joni is threatening that relationship between me and him. That's how he feels about it. And so it's been a continual thing, and I've been finding myself feeling so hurt in the middle of it, and like upset to the point where I'm like, okay, this isn't reasonable. And my ego comes out. And it's really easy to recognize, especially when it's with children, because logically, I shouldn't be getting this upset at this situation. Why am I feeling this hurt? And so immediately, because I could step into a moment of being very aware of the situation and how I'm feeling, and acknowledging that I probably shouldn't be feeling this upset. It's not a personal issue towards me. Where is this coming from? So I noticed that my ego was feeling this way. I noticed the flare, and then I say, okay, why? And I had an older sibling who had those types of feelings towards me, of just kind of a resistance of my presence in general. And as a child, I couldn't understand why she felt that way about me. And she was probably about the same age as Troy, 5 or 6, when I was born. And of course, it was a threat to that child, and that child doesn't know how to relate these emotions of feeling that threat. So they take it out on whoever's around them. But I was also a child, and so I couldn't comprehend why this person didn't just like me being around them. And I felt the energy, I could just feel them. And I had a memory of her saying one time how she just didn't like me, and I just couldn't understand why. And so the situation with Troy brought up that trigger and brought up that wound. And I would have never been able to see it if I wasn't in a situation where it was triggered on an emotional level. And so, and it's been something I've dealt with. Yeah, it was a pattern that played out in my life with friends. I was constantly putting myself in a continual pattern around people who didn't really want to be around me or enjoyed me. And part of, I feel like everyone's life is to be celebrated. And so that was constantly in play in my life of this, why am I not being accepted? And so last night, my mom, I'm telling my mom, I went and saw her and I'm crying. I'm like, I just don't know what to do with him. Like, I just don't know what to do. It's getting to the point where I don't want to keep arguing with a 5-year-old, but he has this anger and he's so upset and then he swung at a grown man. And so I'm asking Spirit, I'm like, Spirit, how do I deal with this situation? And so last night, me and Ramsey set Troy down, and we're like, hey, let's talk about why you swung at this man, why you tried to hit him in the face. And Troy, he's being real quiet, and he won't talk to us, and so I'm like, I'm trying to tell him, I'm thinking what I'm going to say. I'm like, I'm about to tell him about jealousy, and, it's not always about you. Probably what I would have wanted someone to tell my sibling. It's not always about you. It's about other people, too. You have to. And Spirit just stopped me and goes, he doesn't know what jealousy is. And I said, okay. So I said, Troy, you know what that feeling feels like? What does that feel like to you? And he said, mad. Makes him mad. He feels mad. And I said, okay. Well, sometimes when we're in these situations, these emotions come up, and it's okay that we feel that way. It's okay that you feel mad because you really care about me, right? And he was like, yeah. And sometimes when there's other people around, it feels like maybe I care about you less. And it makes you feel mad. And he said, yes. And I said, okay, well, this is how we're going to handle this situation. It's okay that you feel that way. I'm not going to be mad at you for feeling that way. But instead, when you begin to feel that, come and tell me. Say, Alex, I feel mad. And then I can say, why do you feel mad? And then you can tell me, I need your attention. I need some time. And I said, with Joni around, I can maybe give you 5 to 10 minutes with her being occupied. But at least we can get on the same page of where you are emotionally. And, I'm trying to explain it in his language, and he's like, okay. And so then we role-played the scene again. And me and Ramsey are standing there, and I'm talking to Ramsey, and he comes over there, and, he's goofing around for a minute, and then he comes and he says, excuse me. I'm like, yes. He goes, I feel mad. And I'm like, why do you feel mad? And he's like, I need your attention. And I said, okay, I'm going to finish my conversation. In about 5 minutes, we can go play, and we go get some candy. And he was like, okay, cool. And I learned that replay situation from Ariel, actually, because she said it helps children with their subconscious to reenact a situation on how they can better handle it so that their brain can understand, okay, if I go through this situation, now I can do it this way, because he physically did it. But in that moment, it was very healing for me as well, because I was taking the time to acknowledge that the ego in Troy at 5 that just really wants my attention and love and doesn't know how to express that and is creating chaos because he feels it inwardly, instead of condemning that and getting on to him from my own space of ego, I acknowledge how he's feeling from a spirit standpoint, where he can feel loved and accepted, even if he does have those emotions at times, because those are normal emotions that our ego is going to have and going to bring up. And when you're below the age of 7, you're mostly living out of your subconscious. And so Troy's already starting to experience patterns. And by not bringing condemnation to the situation for feeling that way, there was healing in the room. And you could just kind of feel it. It was just kind of like a sweet presence. Instead of, okay, well, I'm going to put you in timeout every time, or you're going to get whatever it is to discipline that ego part. Instead, we're teaching Troy at 5 to acknowledge it, to become aware of it, notice where the source of that feeling is coming from, and then moving into spirit and love and show him another way. And it was really healing for me, because what I was doing in that moment was parenting the situation almost as if it was me as that child. And I was giving love to Troy the way that I was unable to give love to my sibling and understand her, because she caused me pain in the situation. So by walking through that with him, it was almost like I was doing it with my sibling and forgiving her and noticing that she was a child that lived in a pattern of this for, however long, because she was dealing with something inwardly she couldn't express. And I brought that out in her. And so by going through that, it was such a healing process for me to recognize that ego can be our biggest friend in any situation if we can acknowledge it and allow Spirit to lead us to the source of that situation so that we can engage in full healing. And so that I am no longer looking through this lens of rejection, but I can take that off. And now I can look through a lens of actual awareness of what's happening in this situation. And it was a really beautiful moment. And it seemed so small. It didn't seem super significant until Spirit stepped in and was bringing me through this entire process. And I realized in that moment, it wasn't just about Troy. It's about this whole situation that brought healing to both of us. And that was just acknowledging ego and stepping into the voice and listening to Spirit. And that is the space that Sheila's talking about. That's the space she's talking about, is stepping into that neutral space of taking you out of the middle of it, even when you're feeling the hurt and the pain, and saying, okay, what is this? What is this situation here for? Why am I in the middle of this? And I've been kind of sick, not anymore, but I was sick. And when we're sick, usually I feel like my ego is always heightened when I'm feeling sick because I'm feeling pitiful and sad for myself. And the moment I started feeling better, I could kind of step away from that and see what was going on there with myself. And anyways, I say all that to say that ego is 100% our biggest friend. And it's there to bring truth in our lives and healing on levels that we didn't even know were available, and healing to situations we didn't even know were still bothering us. Because I was still living through that lens, and I didn't even recognize it until Troy showed me. And Troy and Joni, they show me a lot, because so much of how you'll behave to a child will bring out what is actually being triggered, what is actually hurting from you and your own childhood. And they're awesome, because the moment you can just recognize it, they step out of it like that, like it never even happened. And then he didn't claim that behavior as, this is who I am. You know, he's not going to go, I'm a jealous person, I'm an angry. He just stepped into, okay, I need acceptance and love, and opened his heart back up. And it's really that simple. And I think that children show us how we can just open right back up after we've been hurt. I've been carrying that hurt for 25 years. And just like that, and in one moment, I can just reopen my heart and say, okay, I'm not going to live out of that perspective anymore, that filter anymore, and I'm going to change that. And so when I had that encounter with my dad, he told me to change my mind. As we change our minds in these small situations out of these perspectives we've looked out of our entire lives, and we realize why something is triggering us so much, and then we have that other perspective, we can look at it from a third-party view and say, okay, this is what that is. And some of the things that we're moving into, the uncomfortability is what is going to bring out in you a new perspective, a way to change your mind. And listen, and I encourage anyone to listen to Darren's messages the year before he passed, because his language started to change. The words he was using started to change. Everything started to change about him, but the message was still the same, and it was literally just another perspective. And now we're going to continue to move into other perspectives and other perspectives. But the moment it just feels in here, okay, that's an opportunity for me to have a new perspective. That's an opportunity for growth. That's an opportunity for me to change my mind.
Yep, go ahead. Yep. So that was like in real time when we said you can go into the future and into the past. That's what happened, in not just with scripture or whatever. So she's going into the future, her children's children, stopping a pattern, because she's yielding to the higher source of God, right? And then she's also going into the past, things that happened in her past. And that's what begins to happen when you move into that neutral space and yield to that. Go ahead.
Sheila was talking about talking about the remnant and basically being a fire starter. You know, well, what I'm saying, I don't know if you said that, but being a fire starter in our beliefs and the world's ready for it with the governments and what's going on with the governments remind me of religion. Okay, they're being torn down. I mean, they're getting kind of built up. I don't know about built up. They're getting exposed. Okay, and these governments and what they've been doing throughout the world and how they suppress the people, it's getting exposed and it's changing and it's getting ripe for us to go out there and like with religion tells you about a remnant and this and that, and it promotes separation and really anti-love and a lot of condemnation. If you're here, which you are, and you know in your heart, and if you don't know, and if you're listening, you're a fire starter. You're somebody that's ready for all this to break loose. And it's going to be through love. And it's going to be through just where everything's being torn down with religion and things like that and what we've been taught and what you've been taught. It is so ripe, and it's getting there because the more that I look into things, because with my son passing and wanting to go deeper and really believe what I said I believe, because I questioned, did I believe it? And the things that I'm seeing and the love and everything that's exposing religion really as being evil, just like the governments of the world have been evil. I love my country. I serve my country. But we got a pretty evil government. Just depending, even if you think you got the right man in office, there's a lot of bad stuff in there. But I still love my country, and I'm not going to turn on my country, and I'm not going to turn on other countries. But our love and what we're doing and what we're exposing, and you get out there and you start telling people, you don't have to be confrontational at all, because religion, you were confrontational. You're telling somebody they're going to hell, you were being confrontational. And even if you implied it, you were being... But love and no hell, oh my gosh. I've experienced something where I used to believe a demon was in everything, and that's why I had my problems, and the devil was just on me all the time, and I was living in fear. And now the things that I thought was so demonic, I'm going, oh crap, I believe this. Because it's not. It's based in love, and it's based in hope, and it's based in, I get to see my son before I die. You know, and I've been encountering him. At first, it was bad ways, and now it's like, oh my gosh, I'm loving him, and I'm just hugging him, you know, like I would Darren when he would come to me before Caleb had passed. And now, it's where we have such a great opportunity coming up for us. And I encourage you to dig deep. Go into things you wouldn't have looked at. You don't have to believe everything you see. Sheila, maybe, I think it was Sheila just saying, no, just listen. I mean, I'm not believing everything I read, but I'm not dismissing it. So all these things I thought were terrible and demonic in the past, now I'm sitting here embracing it and going, oh, there's so much love in that. What could be so bad about this? And I don't care. I'm going to put it out there. I don't care. Yeah, I got my son died 7 months ago card on my side to say, well, they're probably not going to say anything to me because they're afraid I'm going to punch them in the face, you know. And but I really don't want to punch them in the face. If religion was a person, I would punch it in the face. Yes, I would. But it's not. And so I use my punching bag for that. But don't take me wrong. When I say religion, yes, I was angry, very angry, and I was angry at certain people that I know no matter what they say to me, I know they're saying my son's burning in hell. I used to be that person. And God, thank God, I am not that person anymore. And all I want, it is so much torment. And the thing is, I brought it on myself. You know, you condemn yourself. And if people want to believe that and they think I'm in a delusion, that's great. I'll live in this delusion because I am freer than I've ever been. And I'm getting more and more free. And I want other people to encounter the same thing. But I don't want you to lose a loved one to cause you to dig deeper. I want you to look at it. And I was already going that route through the help of Darren and Sheila, you know. And Sheila's just taking up the baton and run with it, you know. And I'm right there with her. I mean... but the thing is, what I love is that we're encouraged where we can just go and no condemnation on us, nothing. You just go seek it out. I'm not going to tell you how to believe. And so the main thing is I just want to encourage you to not let it take that, and that you all are fire starters. I got so fired up earlier. I hadn't been like this since before my son died. Really, I hadn't been like this since before Darren died. And, I'm sorry, not died. They are alive and kicking, more than we are. That's for damn sure. Okay, what I'm saying is that we have so much potential And if we can just tap into that, what she's talking about. And I got so excited this morning. It was like, it's back. I feel it, and it's deeper than ever. But just look at near-death experiences. Not that you got to believe every little thing, especially with people promoting books and things like that. But I'm listening to doctors and atheists and things like that, and I'm sharing it with different people, but I'm sharing it with people outside the body. And I am finding out so many people believe like we do. Christians who, I see these two guys, they have this podcast, the two Christians, and one of them had a near-death experience. I said, man, they're probably Baptists. I'm not even going to listen to what they got to say. They're going to be the whole hell thing. And they had a doctor on there that did these studies and with near-death experiences, and whether, it doesn't matter what religion you came from or if you ever believed in anything, they said most of them, and these are thousands of people that they talk with, most of them encounter Jesus. The others, they encounter the source or the light or God. It's love, total love. And then maybe 20% encounter hell, some type of hell kind of thing, but they still go to the light. But usually those are the ones who have had that exposure. They created their own hell. When they die, or not even, go through their little thing they're going through, that's what they see. They brought, I don't know how to put it, but you probably get what I'm talking about. And even out of that 20%, they said a lot of those, they're still on medication or stuff. These are people, they're EKGs, if they're hooked up, flatline. There's nothing going on. And the one that stood out to me, and I think it's really taken me to a different step, is a blind girl. She had never, and also it's questions I had when I was going through fear so much about reality. Why, little questions like, how is it we see? Why can't we see everything around us? Well, guess what? That is actually some of the heavenly stuff, that other realm, provoking your thought. For me, the position I was in was fear. Now, I'm not in that fear. I don't care. I could die right now, and I look forward to it. But I got too much to do here, so I'm not going anywhere. So when this girl was dead, and I don't remember the whole story. All I know is she's dead. She's always been blind. She came out of her body. She's looking at everything. She's telling them. She could tell them everything that happened. Of course, these are things she's never seen, but she's describing the best way she can. When she comes back into her body, she's alive, and she's telling the doctor, she said, I saw everything 360, and just like in my dreams, and I'm sure y'all have them, you communicate without talking. And I saw everything 360. I could see everything around me. Well, with me, I can picture what's behind me and all that once I've seen it, and I can sense if somebody's coming up behind me and picture it. But when she said, how did you see? And he said, through pie shape. I see that out like this. And so she just starts cracking up, going, no, you're kidding. No, you don't. No. And he said, yeah, that's how we see. And she's just laughing. Of course, she's still blind. She's alive now. She's still blind. But that's how incredible what we got to look forward to. Because when we talk about religion being in a box, we're really in a box in our bodies. It's going to be so different once we get out of that. And we can have it here. I mean, I think it's all ironic the way it is. Anyway, it's just... it was so cool what this girl went through and how she's laughing about it and how we're going to be once we get out of these bodies. But we can do it here. We really can. If Jesus did it, why can't we do it? And there's people doing it all the time. You're just not going to hear about it. Just like the truth that goes on in the world, you don't hear about it because you don't hear about it on most news sources. So here's the news. Listen to her.
Y'all stand up with me real quick. Real quick.
Okay, so this is like yesterday morning. God was talking to me about what's and who's, and I was like, you sound like Dr. Seuss. But he basically, I guess, I wrote it down, and one of the things he said was a who derives from how you handle a what. And even more what's arrive from how you view your who. So it's a cycle that goes and goes because you can always learn more about yourself, right? And it's also entirely up to you what that what does to your who. So the whats don't define you, which a what is like the things you go through, right? So the whats don't define you. It's how you handle the whats that bring you closer to who you already are. So that's what he was talking to me about.
I love it. Father, we just thank you. Spirit, breath, source of everything, Allah, Jehovah. Thank you, God, for what we see and what we're willing to see, what we're willing to let go of. God, I just ask that you begin to remind people of things that they've seen in the past, that they're still carrying around, that they have yet to go through that door. God, I ask, Spirit, that you just begin to bring that up in people, that they would see the door before them. These things that you've nudged, there's things that God has nudged you in, directions he's nudged you in, things that were whispered to you, like what ifs, that you never fully began to discover and look at. And God said, now it's time to discover and look at it all around. Examine it. That is your door. Each of us have doors, and it's through revelation. It's through understanding. It's an invitation. God, I thank you that you're bringing up these invitations and these things that you've whispered to no one but us, Lord. And I thank you, God, for the courage in this room and those that are listening, those that are attached here, God, to walk through these doors. There's more of you to be discovered and known in this earth realm. And God, I thank you that we're still here and we're here to shine our light, the light of who you are through us, that people would go, man, is that not the Christ? Lord, I thank you for your grace to see. Amen. Love you guys.